something to look at when you're looking at Keldon Johnson is that fact that he can kind of be that two-way star for you. He can be that Kawhi Leonard role for you. Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're going to get right into things here today. So, today, we are talking about Keldon Johnson. Definitely a guy that, he started off the season pretty well, and a guy that, after him playing with Team USA over the summer, I think we all kind of saw a jump coming. Now, he started off the season super decent, right? So this is, a guy for San Antonio Spurs who, when he was picked, he was the 29th pick in the first round. Not super high pick, right? And he's come out and he's done some decent things in his career. When you look at his career averages, it's about 12 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist per game. Last year, he averaged about 12. An assist, about 6 rebounds, and then half a steal per game. And then he did that shooting about 33% from 3 and 47% from the field. So, definitely decent stat line for a second-year player. And, coming into this season, he started off pretty well. So, obviously in his first game, he had 15 against the Magic. And then just yesterday, he ended up putting up 27 points on the Denver Nuggets, and definitely, I wasn't able to catch the game, but when I went back and looked at the box, I was like, yes, I definitely did some stuff. When you look at the fact that, he had the 27 points, 2 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals, but he also shot 12 for 18 from the field, and I think the most impressive thing is, just looking at the box score, is you see that, Michael Porter Jr., definitely a guy that I think the Nuggets were going to be leaning on a lot this upcoming season to kind of fill some of that scoring role that Murray's left behind, while he's injured and stuff. And you'll get how Porter was the lowest scorer for the entire starting lineup with 7 points, no assists. He only had 1 rebound, shot 3 for 10 from the field, and 1 for 5 from 3. So overall had a pretty bad game. And then even Aaron Gordon only shot 6 times. He had 8 points, 1 assist, 5 rebounds, shot for 3 for 6. And I think, the majority of the time you're going to see more than likely Keldon Johnson was guarding those two guys. And he held those two to a combined 15 points, on his own going for 27. So definitely was a positive for the Spurs yesterday. And, that's just looking off the box score. But this is a guy that's got potential, right? He's a guy that he can defend multiple, 1 through 4. He's 6'5", 6'6", small forward, power forward type guy, kind of in a more, he's got more bounce and spring to him than like a Draymond, right? Where like a Draymond, he's more of a 4'5", whereas Keldon Johnson's more of a 3'4". So he's kind of got that like athletic 6'6", 6'7" build that has that, defensive capability to guard the multiple positions, and has definitely shown some things in his career. I think, coming out of college, he was looked at as more of like a guard, more of like a ball handler and stuff, and the Spurs have definitely molded him into a pretty good player and a guy that I think is going to fill a lot of what DeMar DeRozan's left behind on this team. He definitely carries some of that similar stuff that DeMar has, right? He's got that playmaking ability, being a guard in his college days. He's got similar frame and size and stuff like that, and then I think he's got much more defensive potential than DeMar because he essentially grew up in the NBA in the Spurs system, right? That's how I would best explain that. When you play for Pop finds a lot of decent defenders, right? You look at DeJounte Murray, you look at Keldon Johnson, even a guy like Jakob Poeltl, who I think on most teams probably wouldn't be the greatest defender, is a decent defensive big for them. He can block a few shots for him and, kind of do that. And I think we always look at that as their weakest position, but, he's a guy that Pop likes and works well with, and that's just kind of how it is, right? Spurs are typically pretty good defensively. Now, I expect the Spurs to not be that great this year. I expect the Spurs to, be more of a more of a 500 team, maybe below. They probably one of the least talented rosters in the NBA. But, you know, DeJounte and Keldon and guys like Derek White and stuff like that are some of the guys that make this team actually have some talent, make this team have some potential. And the backcourt depth out there is definitely interesting to look at when you kind of see who rose from the backcourt that they have and all the players they got. You know, you're looking at a team that's got Derek White, that's got DeJounte, that's got Keldon, that's got Bryn Forbes, that's got Trey Jones, that's got Josh Primo, that's got Devin Vassell, that's got Lonnie Walker. I mean, that's a ton of guards slash small forwards, and you know, Keldon, I think we all look at as the best player out of all of them, and then with DeJounte being number 2, so you know, you kind of see who really rose out of, you know, this number of lottery and decent second round picks and stuff like that, players that you know, make an impact for this team. I mean, Keldon Johnson really is the Spurs star right now. He's the guy that if you're going to make the playoffs, it's going to be in large part due to him. If you're going to do much, it's going to be in large part due to him. I mean, he's developed into a super decent scorer. He can kind of score from the inside, kind of score from the outside. I think his three-point shooting, it definitely still needs some work. It's not terrible, but it needs some work. And, you know, if Spurs games are on, he's going to be the reason that you're watching Spurs games, right? Him and DeJounte, you know, obviously, you know, the Spurs are always going to have good passing and stuff like that, so that makes them even if they're lower talented, it makes them a nice team to watch. But having those two guys that just have that super decent potential on that team, and you know, could have that game, right? Like yesterday, where Keldon just decided to come in, drop 27, play good defense, and make a big impact to the point where, you know, from what I'm hearing, the Nuggets didn't look that great against the Spurs yesterday. Now, obviously, we won and everything like that, but it took a bit of an effort from Jokic against a team that, like I said, probably shouldn't be a top team in the conference or in the league this year. You know, Jokic took 32 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists in only 33 minutes to get the win, and that was with very limited help. You know, Morris had 13, and then Barton had 12, but other than that, you're looking at like, you know, Jermichael Green off the bench with 10, and then Facundo had 8, Aaron Gordon had 8, and Michael Porter had a very, very disgusting shooting 7 for a guy that shoots super efficiently. I mean, Michael Porter on his career, I mean, averaging 54% from the field and something close to that, I believe, from 3. But yeah, definitely something to look at when you're looking at Keldon Johnson is that fact that he can kind of be that two-way star for you. He can be that Kawhi Leonard role for you for the Spurs. And I think we're all going to look back at that draft and realize how much of a steal he was, and realize how much of an impact he's going to make for the Spurs and can make for the Spurs heading into the future. Yeah, anyways, I was talking about Porter's efficiency. You know, sometimes he's called Mr. Efficiency because he's a knockdown player. Like 54% from the field last season, 44% from 3 last season. And, you know, he had a really good shooting night to open off the season. I think he shot 6 for 9, shot 2 for 3 from 3. You know, didn't shoot a ton, but he was knocking down the shots that he was shooting. And then, you know, yesterday, you know, only shooting 3 for 10 and 1 for 5 from 3 is terrible. By his standards, especially because, you know, I mean, that even dropped his averages, right? You're looking at a guy that had that super good first game, and now if you were to look at his averages, it's 45% from the field and 37% from 3, which, I mean, still overall from 3 is a very decent percentage. It's almost 40%. It's above league average, and then 45% from the field isn't terrible from like more of a perimeter player, right? But compared to what he's done in his career and stuff like that, it's kind of abysmal. You know, he's never shot below 42% in his career from 3. He's never shot below 50% from the field. And so for, you know, Keldon Johnson to do such a good job on him defensively and kind of hold him to that 7 points, and even, you know, the fact that Keldon can kind of hold his own at that 4 spot, and, you know, he works well for small ball in the modern NBA, which the Spurs, they don't have a lot of players that work for that, because some of their guards, Although, the Spurs are going to be a good defensive team. It's a lot of team defense and stuff like that. So some of them can't individually guard those bigger guys, right? Like Devin Vassell probably needs to put on a little bit more weight until he's super, his kind of defensive capabilities can transfer to some of the bigger players. And then, like a guy like Trey Jones or stuff like that, he's just a little too small for that. So the fact that Keldon Johnson has that little bit of size to him at that 6'5", 6'6", height, and like 220 weight, he can kind of manage himself down low, manage himself on the perimeter, and if his shot creation really starts to come together, he can be something special for the San Antonio Spurs. Whether that be an all-star, whether that be a borderline all-star, whether that be a superstar. He's definitely got the potential to make something happen for them, and I don't know how long Pop is going to be there. I think we all are kind of waiting to see how that's going to trickle out, but I think if Pop's staying, one of the main reasons is Keldon Johnson, and one of the guys that's probably received the most influence from Pop is going to be Keldon Johnson, right? He's one of those gems that we all talk about the Spurs finding in the draft, and at the 29th pick, it's definitely a good player to pick up. I know coming out of college, he was kind of one of those players we didn't know quite where he was going to go, and ends up going to the Spurs. Obviously, I think we've given him all a little bit of slack for drafting so many guards, but sometimes that's just how you find good players, right? You look at OKC, collecting so many picks, and part of the reason that they do that is so that they can try, they want to try and find the next star that they can. Obviously having the big three of Westbrook, Harden, and Durant back in the day, that took a lot of high picks, and so they kind of see that as their formula to success, whereas like the Spurs, they go for the sleepers, and I think Keldon Johnson, again, like I said, can definitely be that for them. But yeah, I mean, super impressive player, super decent ceiling to him, and when you look at it, this is a guy that came from the Kawhi Leonard trade, right? It makes the Kawhi Leonard trade look so much better. I know this is something I talked about in my video about how how Greg Popovich and the Spurs are ruining it, and how Kawhi Leonard helped contribute to ruining the Spurs and stuff like that. And definitely go check that out, because I make very opposite points than what I'm making in this video. But that's probably the biggest piece that you got in that trade. I mean, you got DeMar, but without having gotten Keldon Johnson, this trade would be looked at so much worse, especially when we look at what superstars go for nowadays. I mean, you had Brandon Ingram on the table, and Keldon Johnson, who knows, could be on a Brandon Ingram level here pretty soon, which makes the trade look so much better, right? And so you got lucky that's where you kind of struck luck with your pick and stuff like that. And I think, shout out to Keldon Johnson. I think we're all hoping for him to do well, because typically when the Spurs do well in the NBA does well, right? Because they might not be the biggest market team, but they're a known team of, this is always a solid team, and they play a brand of basketball that sometimes can be a bit boring, and sometimes can, just because of the passing and the constant ball movement and the complex and constant moving offense, can be interesting to watch, right? Now it definitely depends on some of their personnel and how they kind of go with that going into the future, especially when you look at that front court. Now, can you play Keldon at the 4? Yes, absolutely, but is Jakob Poeltl your long-term solution at center? And there's stuff like that where it's like, can you figure this out? And if the Spurs do end up being pretty bad this year, obviously there's a guy like Chet Holmgren who's going to be in the next draft that would pretty much fit perfectly for what the Spurs need, right? He can kind of be that young center that you can kind of develop, and who knows, maybe they can kind of start to fly back onto the scene super quick here, if they can kind of quickly figure that out. And I think it's exciting. It's exciting with how the Spurs develop players, and it's exciting to see how Keldon Johnson's developed. And I think, I kind of talked about Cam Reddish yesterday about how he could be a sleeper for most improved. I think Keldon Johnson could be too, because we've all looked at him as a decent player, and if the Spurs end up exceeding expectations, maybe they make the plan or something like that, with a lesser talented roster, if he's a main contributor and a main factor to that, what's to say that he doesn't get an all-star nod or something like that? as a bench all-star player or something like that. And then at that point, are we saying he's on Brandon Ingram's level? He's got the two-way, maybe not quite the scoring level that Brandon Ingram has, but definitely, if you're the best player on the Spurs and you lead them to the play-in, that's better than what the Pelicans have done. So I think that's a conversation that, at the end of the year could be had, and could definitely have some, validity to it. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to make this video. Super interested. When I saw that stat line that, not only did he have the 3 steals, but he was able to put up the 27 points, and how bad MPJ shot, I figured, you got to contribute that a lot to Keldon Johnson's play. Now, he did not, play any short amount of minutes. He was out there for, just a couple minutes playing, 37 minutes in the game, the most out of any player, I believe, that played in the game. But that's what your star players are supposed to do, and could he be a star for them? He definitely could be, and so very interested to see how he does this season for him. Very interested to see how the Spurs do, and are they going to prove me wrong? Are they gonna make something happen and actually make this roster, kind of start to really form back together? Now that they've kind of got DeMar, who I think never was the greatest fit there. Out of there, I think DeMar definitely developed while he was there, even though he's not young, right? He developed his playmaking and stuff like that, and he went to the Bulls, and we'll see what they can do. Development staff is very good there, and they're a team that's always going to fight. I think the Spurs kind of have that don't give up mentality. They definitely have that. They always want to win mentality, and that's what you look for a lot of times in organizations, because it never lets you fall into a slump, right? It never lets you become the Minnesota Timberwolves that truly struggle to just make anything happen regardless of their talent. So yeah, super interested to see what the Spurs do. Super interested to see if Keldon Johnson can make a push for most improved, or maybe an all-star team or something like that. And kind of waiting to see how that two-way potential pans out this year. Anyways, this is gonna be it from your boy Dom for NBA Now Today, and catch y'all later. Peace out.